So I just want to let you know that I actually did this as a live Periscope with the audience. So if you ever want to visit and see those live, please follow me on Periscope and you can even watch them on the replays. But I wanted to let you know I used super smooth white paper because I feel like it wouldn't bleed as much. And then I used black paper for these tests. I also cleaned the stamp thoroughly in between each one. Also, the 5 pads that I tested were Color Box Gold, Encore in gold, Delicata in golden glitz, Brilliance in galaxy gold, and Stays On metallic. Now, all of these are pigment-based pads with the exception of Stays On metallic. It's actually a solvent-based pad. So if you want to stamp on anything that is non-porous, that's really your only option here.
Okay, so let's go over the results. So just so you know, I stamped everything. I also applied a bit of water, some Copic style marker, which is alcohol based, and also some Tombow marker, which is water based, just to see if any of them were compatible. So let's go one at a time. Okay, so the color box has a nice shine to it. It also did really well with the detail in the fine stamp, but also with coverage in the big negative area. It did bleed out with some water, so you should know it's not really meant for watercolor purposes. It also lifted the color with the Copic marker, so I would keep these on their own and not use them with markers. Encore has a slightly lighter color. It's not as shiny, but it did not bleed with the Copic or the watercolor marker. It did just bleed out when you applied water a little bit. It just kind of lifted the color off, but it also was really nice for the fine detail work. Our Keidel Brilliance is definitely more of a yellowy type of gold, and it has a lovely shimmer to it. It definitely, though, has kind of like that marigold color to it, so it's not a deep gold. However, it worked very nicely with the Copic and the Tombow. When you apply a little bit of water, it lifts the shimmer, but it leaves the color behind, so that's an important thing to note. Delicata has more of what I consider just a traditional gold color. It did a beautiful job on the fine detail and on the negative space. It seemed to be very compatible with both kinds of markers. And when you add a little bit of water, again, some of the shimmer comes off, but it did not really affect the color as well. So that's kind of cool. And then lastly, we have Stays On. It has kind of that deeper red type of gold to it. You can actually see the undertones, but it did not do great on the fine detail work. By the way, it did not interact with the markers at all. It's important to note that this is the only one that you can use on non-porous surfaces. So if you want to stamp on vellum or plastic, really Stays On is your only option. All right, so now we're going to take a look at how it looks on black. And this, my friends, really is the proof in the pudding. So Color Box was my first one, and I'm going to just tell you right now, it's my favorite. It did a beautiful job on the detail work and also on the negative space. It did a good job holding the detail, but it also gives nice coverage, and it's really shiny. Next up was Encore, and it's almost my second favorite, so it's kind of funny it's in a line. It is a little less intense than the Color Box, so it's kind of a runner-up. It isn't quite as bold. It has a little bit more of a red undertone. Brilliance underperformed. It just doesn't have enough pigment or dye to really make it stand out on black. Delicata, however, did a really great job. It is very shimmery, and it has that nice, warm kind of gold color that's really free of the green undertones that sometimes you see in gold stamp pads. And when we move down to Stays On, you'll see that it just really doesn't look great on black. Both of these are actually Stays On because I kind of blurped here, so I stamped it again. And it just isn't quite as opaque as I'd like. So really, the Color Box and the Delicata are my two absolute favorites on black. So since my two semifinalists were Color Box and Delicata, I decided to just quickly emboss both of them, and I noticed that both emboss very well. And when you emboss them, the Color Box turns a little more green, and you see a little bit more of that red undertone, that warm yellow with the Delicata. But depending on what you're doing, both are really acceptable. So just to recap, on both white and black paper, Color Blocks and Delicata were my two favorites. So really the difference comes down to which shade of gold you like better. The Color Box is more of a greeny gold, maybe more like a steampunk, whereas Golden Glitz has more of a warm gold to it and pulls a little more like a marigold. So really at that point, it's a personal choice.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Periscope rebroadcast. Make sure you follow me at Craft Test Dummy over there so you can see them live and participate. Thanks for watching and have a crafty day.